huge thanks to OK Jersey. They're your go-to for the 2026 World Cup and an incredible retro archive. They got decades of iconic league classics, from legendary 90s designs to the rarest club heritage kits. Whether it's a high-performance player version or a timeless vintage look, prices start at just £15, 4.5 Trustpilot rating and fast shipping. Use code Chris for 8% off and grab your piece of football history now.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's fifth pre-season friendly. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Getafe 1. This game, of course, was behind closed doors, a friendly at Hotspur way, lasting only 70 minutes, and it was live on Spurs Play. Now, it is understood that the players that didn't feature in today's game against Getafe will now feature in a behind closed doors friendly, and this will not be televised, and it will be a Spurs v Spurs under 21s game. Now, this was not the prettiest of games. That is a quote from Andy Robertson at the end of the match. It was a very physical game, and John Paul van Hecke said in a normal game, Getafe would have had 2 or 3 red cards. Now, Spurs remain unbeaten during pre-season, and we have 2 pre-season games left, and they are both against Hoffenheim, one at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next Saturday, and again against Hoffenheim at Hotspur Way, and then the Premier League season starts in just 2 weeks' time. Now, my name is Chris Cowlin. I'll be the host today. Today with us, we've got Lee, the Dorset Spur. Lee, how are you?
Chris. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to be back.
Great to have you here, Lee. All the way from Singapore, we've got Dustin Lau. Dustin, how are you?
All right, how are you all? It's Singapore's National Day, just after midnight, so it's National Day today for Singapore.
Well, great to have you here. Thank you, Dustin. And all the way from New York, we've got Terry Kim with us. Terry, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm actually in Chicago today, but doing well. First time I got to see Spurs all the way through in a preseason. So lots to talk about. Thanks for having me.
Terry, let's start the show with you. Let's get your thoughts from today's game. Of course, as I mentioned there, it was only 70 minutes. From what we understand, these players, the players that didn't feature today, will now be playing in a non-televised pre-season friendly. What do you make of today's 70 minutes? And overall, what have you made of pre-season so far?
I mean, seeing how Getafe played, I'm actually a little relieved. It was only 70 minutes now, just to... I thought there could be some injuries, especially on Bergwall. He was really getting battered. So it certainly seemed like a not so friendly. Having said that, I do think it was a good test for Spurs this late in the preseason to have such a physical match. I mean, there's certainly a lot of positives, especially with our new signings. My gosh, Robertson, Tonali, and especially John Paul van Hecke. I was really, really impressed with JP van Hecke. I mean, with all 3 of them, not just the quality, but their just their general vision, the positivity, and their presence. It was very, very, very impressive. The attacking, the front 3, I'm sure we're going to get into that. It is a little worrying. I mean, we're only 2 weeks out from Brentford, and it's hard to say who our front 3 is going to be. Matisse Tell, that first half, I feel like he gave the ball away more than he did anything else. He did grow into the game eventually. Mikey Moore looks, in this system, maybe it was just because he was on the right, he just looks a little lost, and looks like we're gonna loan him out anyway. And then Richarlison was just Richarlison, and I mean, it's not in a good way, not in a bad way. That is not a very promising front 3, but certainly all the way back from Kinski to the defense and that midfield especially, looking very, very positive.
Lee, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a rough and tumble game, wasn't it? It was one of them. It was. I guess it's a good test in terms of character and stuff like that. You know, can you take the tackles? Can you keep your head when you need to, and so on. We did see Tonali get a little bit caught up in one of them. So yeah, I think I did read somewhere that Getafe are the team of dirty team in Spain. So and we wanted to play them particularly. So what the reason is behind that, I don't know, but maybe for what the reasons I just said. So, but yeah, I thought it was quite boring, sort of up to a point. but it kind of grew once the goal went in. Once they scored their goal, I think it started to get a little bit more. And we did show character to get back into it. So, yeah, it's just one of them. It's pre-season, not a friendly pre-season, so a little bit different, I guess.
Lee, what have you made of pre-season so far? Because, of course, this was our 5th pre-season friendly. Of course, the players have just returned from New Zealand and Australia. What have you made of pre-season overall?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure you can ever take too much from pre-season because you're seeing a lot of changes, a lot of players coming in and out of the team and stuff. I mean, we've had Manor Solomon playing a lot of games, for instance, and we've seen Bergvall play, which was, all the talk about was him leaving and so on. So him kind of playing a lot of games in it has been quite interesting. For me, I think Tell I thought has been pretty good over the last few games. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't actually surprise a few people next season, but that's just a personal view. I actually quite like the guy, but overall, I mean, you're going into the season unbeaten, and if you can do that, then that breeds confidence. It's a winning mentality. You feel like you're winning, and it's a habit you want to get into. It's like last season, wasn't it? We were in the habit of losing. And once you're in that habit, it just doesn't seem to break until something really changes. So for me, I think, it's all about getting that fitness and getting the players around, knowing each other and so on with all the additional players coming in and stuff. So, yeah, it's pre-season, I guess. I wouldn't take too much from it, but say it's good to see some of the new guys getting around each other and seeing a few passages of play that look quite promising, a little bit more forward thinking, a little bit quicker on the ball and stuff like that, which I've been quite happy to see.
Dustin, let's get your thoughts on the game.
I think it's an interesting choice from our perspective as a very injury-prone team that's had, season-long injuries for many players, ACLs and all that, and then we basically choose to play the Stoke of Spain. I think they spent quite a lot of time kicking lumps out of us. Tonali almost got into a fight with one of their players. But I think it's useful for us to see how we play against a physical team like that, and also against a team that packs, their box and tries to play it defensive. It's interesting to see how we try to break them down defensively. I think what we can take from this is that while Tell is very promising, we do need reinforcements along the front line because there are, this was a test to see how well we can unpick a lock, and I think we still need a few lock pickers.
Dustin, what do you make of today's starting 11? This was the starting 11. Kinski, Robertson, Van Hecke, Davis, Gray as captain yet again. Tonali, Bergvall, Gallagher, Moore, Richarlison, Tell. Now, Roberto De Zerbi named 7 subs today. Vicario, Dekai, Donnelly, Scarlett, Yang, Hardy and Byrne. Now, it's interesting because what I said at the very start, another friendly is taking place as we talk now at Hotspur Way. It is not televised. 18 first-team players did not feature today for Tottenham. So Danso, Udogi, Solanke, Solomon, Sarr, Bentancur, Van der Ven, Souza, Austin, Dubravka, Senesi, Fernandez, Vicario, Takai, Donnelly, Scarlett and Yang. Now, of course, we've got 3 players still to return from the World Cup. Romero, Porro, Spence. And we've got 5 players out injured or coming back from injury. Simmons, Maddison, Kudus, Kulusevski and Odebear. Dustin, how would you analyse and assess what Roberto De Zerbi has done during pre-season, the minutes that he has given out to players and how he has managed it?
Frankly, I think that the pre-season that went to Australia and New Zealand was more of something that it was more of a connecting the club to the overseas fans. I think that whatever minutes he could get there was a bonus, but I think that it was more for fitness purposes rather than bidding down any kind of tactical system. I think what we'll see now that we're back at the lodge and we're playing games that are closer to home, that these are the games that he's probably going to be trying out a lot more of how we're likely to play in the coming season. I find it interesting that we're playing two shortened games today. I think he recognizes that we are possibly a bit behind in our preparation and that we still need a lot more bedding down of the system to go, which is why he's playing two competitive games, like one after the other, basically, so that rather than it being an exercise of juggling minutes, he's giving this full game to these players and then another full game to the team that's going to be playing against the under-21s. So I suspect that we're going to see, and the other game is behind closed doors, so we're not going to be able to make any observations on that. But I suspect that we'll see a lot more of what we saw in this game, which we saw more true passing in this game, possibly even in 70 minutes than we did under Thomas Frank the entire of last season. So that's one area where I think it's an improvement. A lot of true balls from Jean-Paul Van Hecker. I think that we're starting to see Tonali play some nice true balls as well. I think overall we're seeing that there is progression, there is a system of play, but one area where I found a little concerning was how easily Getafe's players were able to dribble through the center. I noted one on I think 17 minutes and one on 21 minutes where essentially one guy dribbles through the entire midfield and they're through. So that's the part that's a little concerning. But we've still got another 2 or 3 games to go for preseason before we can figure out where we stand before the opening game of the season.
Terry, same question to you. How impressed have you been with Roberto De Zerbi and what he has done so far at the football club? And we know, we'll talk about the transfer window shortly, but we know that he is having a big say in what's going on at the football club in terms of transfers. And when you compare that to other managers in recent years, we know that he is having a lot more of a bigger say. But how impressed have you been with what he has done with this squad, how he is trying to transform this squad and going forward into the new season?
Yeah, extremely. You see the patterns of play. Even today, just some of the one-touch passing, even if they didn't turn into goals, some of the chances that were created with not the optimal team either. That's been my general concern over the preseason, is that we haven't seen close to what the optimal starting 11 would be. Just it's been a lot of mixing and matching and a lot of play for players who probably won't be on this squad going forward. Really curious to see what this looks like after when we see Van de Ven back in there, Porro back in there. I don't think we've seen Fernandez and Tonali play together yet. That was a bit of a worry when I saw the lineup come out. Like, not seeing Matheus Fernandes and Maddison and Solanke in there was a concern. Now knowing that hopefully 2 or 3 of them are playing in this under 21s game means hopefully they'll get some minutes under their legs. But we clearly see what De Zerbi is bringing to the team. They seem to be really bought in for the most part. The concern is that there's just too many question marks, both with the injuries and then the World Cup players coming back as well. Maddison and Solanke, are they going to be ready for the first game? When is Kudus going to come back? Xavi, we know that's going to be a longer term thing. Odegaard, honestly, even when he's at full strength, I still question whether he's a Premier League player or not. And then how is Porro going to integrate? How long is that going to take? The question marks with Romero, is he going to leave? When he's going to leave? When Bukhari is going to leave? And of course, the need for attackers to come in, learn the system, and integrate as well. It's there's all positives, and I think it's going the right direction. It just feels like we're just running out of time. Just 2 weeks until Brentford. That seems very, very short, and with just 2 preseason games left to go.
Terry, talking about players fitting in, I'll go straight in on the 22nd minute because Getafe had a chance. Striker was just about to shoot, and it was a brilliant block by Archie Gray. And as I mentioned earlier, he captained the side yet again today, having captained the side in Auckland and, of course, the 2 games in Sydney. Where does Archie Gray fit in when the Premier League season does start? Because De Zerbi is clearly a fan of him, and he has spoken very highly about him. Leadership qualities, and when you look at the leaders and the experienced players in the sides during pre-season, Archie Gray has been given the nod with the captain's armband. But where does he fit in the Premier League campaign?
Yeah, I've been really I love the support that the Zerbi's putting behind Archie Gray. Um, Archie Gray, it's even standing next to Van Hecke, who I think has quite a presence about him, and he was quite vocal. You could see that Archie Gray doesn't feel out of place, kind of next to him in that spot here. It certainly feels like as if Port was going to take a while to integrate, I wouldn't be surprised if Archie Gray started at right back in that first game. I don't know if there's room for him in the midfield yet. It really depends on kind of the health of Fernandez and Madison. It certainly seems like Tonali and Gallagher will be two of the three in the midfield. It's just a matter of who's going to be that third. I'm a little for Archie particularly. I know that he wants to be a midfielder. Like De Zerbi mentioned that he doesn't particularly enjoy playing right back, but it is nice to have that versatility there, and it is nice that De Zerbi's making a concerted effort to make sure that he feels he's an integral part of the team. I mean, undoubtedly we're going to have more injuries going forward. So there's without a doubt Archie Gray will have his chances to play midfield, but it feels like he is going to start at right back in the Premier League.
Lee, let's come to you. Of course, as we've already mentioned, it was only a 70-minute game today, 35 minutes each way. Now, just before the half-time break, a free kick came in from the left-hand side, headed by Ben Davies, and it was straight at the goalkeeper. And that was Tottenham's only real chance in that first 35 minutes. Now, when we spoke out about the starting 11 and the subs, 7 subs today, all unused. So, the starting 11 got 70 minutes, and this is absolutely vital for the fitness. And as I mentioned, the 18 first-team players that could feature in this other game that is taking place this afternoon, managing the minutes, of course, is very, very difficult. When you think about Spurs in the final third, I know we're going to talk about the transfer window shortly, but is there a worry for you about that we don't have enough firepower? Because the second half, we will come on to it shortly, talk about so many chances in that second half. How vital is it that Spurs do get attacking players in this transfer window?
I don't think anyone's under any illusion that needs work. Like it's like even in the comment section in this section at the side here, you can see it going off, and everybody's talking about the front three. What's it going to be like? What we're going to do? Solanke's not good enough. Richarlison's not good enough. Tell's not good enough. It's the missing piece now. We got off to such a really good start. Sorted out the defence, got a spare goalkeeper. We moved into midfield and done a lot of really good business there. And now everybody's just waiting on that final step. And that's the issue, really. I think everybody's kind of looking at it thinking, where do we go from here? The only thing I would say is we haven't seen the best of Solanke yet. We haven't seen the best of Tell. Kudus has still got to come back. And we've still got Kulusevski sitting there somewhere. Who knows what's happening with him and stuff. And I think a lot of stuff goes on behind closed doors that we don't know about. Obviously, they're more aware of what the plans are than anything else. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the deals are already, pretty much done, and it's just about when they're going to announce them and so on. So I do believe that it will be sorted. That's my view. I don't think we will be going in with just the same front three that we had last season. I think there will be changes. It's just how quickly that can happen, so that we can feel a little bit more settled as fans, that we've got something to look forward to from that point of view. Because for all the good work that's been done, there's still so many question marks, isn't there?
Dustin, let's come to you. Let's also talk about that starting 11. They all got 70 minutes today. How vital is that?
I think it's a good starting point, basically because if you have too many preseason games where you're all subbed off at halftime and you don't have enough minutes in the legs, you are not sure whether they have the fitness to last the entire 90. And I think that it's useful just to get them up to speed. I think the main thing would be managing the minutes of the players that played in the World Cup. So like Netherlands was eliminated relatively early. So it's okay that John Paul Van Hecker got minutes, but I don't expect to see like Porro or anyone that got to the semi-final or any later than that to start until, I don't know, they may not even start the first game of the season, to be honest. I'm not sure Porro necessarily starts. I think that they might slowly bid Porro or Spence, if he's still at the club, back in maybe later in the season. It just seems like there isn't really an off season anymore, just with all these tournaments that FIFA and UEFA keep inserting in between seasons, and then you've got preseason and all those things. It's like the calendar never really stops for the players, and that's another reason why I think we need to sign a lot more players, because I think that injuries are just going to be a reality. There's just too many minutes that they're playing, so it's important that we get the signings that we need, particularly in the front line. And also we need to make some sales, because I think that we can't actually register our full squad until we actually sell a bunch of players, and then we need to start worrying about homegrown club train quotas and stuff like that.
So, of course, it was 0-0 at half-time. 2 minutes into the second half, Getafe had a shot which went wide. And then shortly after, Matisse Tell on the left-hand side plays it straight across the 6-yard box. Moore couldn't get there. Dustin, staying with you, Matisse Tell, what have you made of him during pre-season? Because quite often on this podcast, all of us talk about players taking their opportunity. I really do feel like Matisse Tell has certainly grabbed his opportunity during pre-season and really impressed Roberto De Zerbi.
For sure. I think that Matisse Tell impressed a lot in the preseason games. Maybe not so much in this one, even though he provided an excellent cross that Richarlison should have scored from. But I think that Matisse Tell has provided a lot of thrust, even in the game, even in the season where we were playing very badly under Frank. He was often felt like the only player that was working his socks off and trying to make something happen down the wing. And if you add a little more structure around what he does, I think that there's a player there. The only problem I have sometimes is that he gets a bit Lucas Moura blinders on, and then he's constantly trying to beat his man as opposed to having his head up and looking for teammates. But all in all, he's actually providing a lot of threat down the left, and he's giving defenders something to think about, so that they are trying hard to win their battles with him, and in doing so, that provides spaces. If he can pass it on to someone, he's occupying defenders. So I would say that Tell has probably been the most consistent performer over this preseason so far. I don't think I've seen a game this preseason where I thought he's had a bad game, and in most of the preseason games he's at least been one of the top 3 players in terms of like what he's producing, chances he's creating, and things like that.
Terry, with what Dustin just said there, and I agree completely with it. People are still talking about Savinho, Cody Gakpo and co, and fans still want in a left winger, a replacement for Heung-min Son. Is Tell our man, or do we need someone else?
I don't think so. I think he's had a great preseason. I've always loved his attitude and his drive. I think the level of effort that he puts in is unquestioned. Is he a starting left winger for an elite Premier League team? It's hard to say that at this point. I could see him growing into that position. At this point, I think he's a very solid squad player, a solid backup. I'm not a huge Savinho fan. I am a big Gakpo fan. But after seeing some of the play today, I'm becoming a little bit more convinced on Savinho, just to have someone who can drive at their man and a bit better dribbler. I like what you said, Dustin, about the kind of the Lucas Moura-ishness of him. That's really what I noticed about Robertson's, Tonali, and Van Hecke today, is that they're constantly looking up. They're constantly kind of scanning the field to see kind of where the people are, and that's just a level of quality and skill that we need across the entire team. And you see that at times with Tell. Tell actually had a really nice through ball to Tonali that was just a little bit heavy in the second half. It's play like that you want to see a bit more of. I thought Tell really grew into the second half. I wouldn't be thrilled if he is our starting left winger going into the season, though, and it looks like he will be. Right? Consistency is the key, of course, isn't it, Lee, with someone like Matisse Tell? Because as Terry mentioned there,
that pass. You know, you can't have nearly passes. They've got to be absolutely spot on, and that is exactly what makes elite players. With Matisse Tel, of course, Roberto De Zerbi has said that he wants 2 players in every position. Do you see Tel as a starter for Tottenham in the Premier League, or would you like to see someone like Savinho come in?
So I'm a big fan of Tel, if I'm honest. So I'm a little bit biased, I guess. I do still think we need another left winger. To be honest with you, and I Gakpo, Savinho. I think we need somebody. You need the 2 players for every position. I don't see Tel being the first name on the sheet, and I don't see him being our constant. But I don't think he's a player I would give up on. I do think that there is a player in there. I think people forget that when we were linked with him and we were just about to buy him in the January transfer window, everyone was up in arms because they could only get him on loan. And it was like, we're going to get beaten to him by this one or that one and all the rest of it. And everyone was up in arms about this brilliant young prospect that everybody wanted, And as soon as he's come to Tottenham, all of a sudden he's become rubbish and not good enough and all the rest of it. I agree with what Dustin said. I think, he needs to get his head up. He needs to do more than just try and beat the man. He needs to, get them crosses in quicker. He needs to move the ball faster. But I do think he offers a threat. I do think he works really hard. And I think he's got the right mentality and the right attitude. I think if you remember when he first came in, the fans were all at Ange Postecoglou, giving him a lot of aggravation. And he was one of the players that come over to talk to the fans. He literally just joined the club. And he came over and he was trying to calm the fans down and say, look, we're doing our best. And I just think that he's got that right sort of mentality. And I think there's a player in there. I think he just needs a little bit of time. He's still a very young man. And he needs good players around him to give him those options and so on. So I personally wouldn't give up on him yet. I think there's a player in there. But I don't see him being the actual starting player at this moment in time. But I think as a backup, I think he'd be a really good player you could bring on, as a substitute or whatever, or games that are not necessary, where it's not necessarily working for the starting left winger, if that makes sense. So,
Dustin, let's come to you also on Matisse Tel, because in the 7 games that Roberto De Zerbi managed Tottenham, of course, it was all about keeping Spurs up in the Premier League last season. But of course, this upcoming season, we want to see Roberto De Zerbi ball. We want to see the way that he has made the likes of Brighton, Marseille play before, that great attacking football. And we've seen in a number of training sessions, and I was lucky enough to be in New Zealand and Australia to watch his training sessions, and they are absolutely intense. He wants them to play with this certain style and a lot of one-touch football, and it's exciting football. Now, we have seen Matisse Tel during this pre-season, and I'm not just singling him out. There's a number of other players that are putting decent crosses in, but Tel, while we're on the subject, he is putting a number of crosses in from the left-hand side. And also what I've really noticed as well under De Zerbi so far is the fact that we are not afraid to shoot. And I know you and I have spoken a little bit about this before, but it just seems to be very different. How excited are you by the style of play?
I think what excites me about De Zerbi's style of play is it's a game of contrast, right? When you've just had a season of Thomas Frank where the style of play is set pieces, long throws, hit it to Kudus and hope he saves the day, or get the ball to Porro, get Spence to carry the ball to Porro and then let him cross it into Richarlison being outnumbered by centre backs. When you've seen that for half a season and almost gone down from it, it's very easy to look at any kind of progressive passing style of play and it's grass greener as the other side. But one thing about De Zerbi's style of play that I think will be very useful in the Premier League is that the Premier League has moved to a man-to-man press, hybrid man-to-man presses, where they have a shape when they are in rest defense, but when they're pressing, they press man-to-man. And that's kind of why the season has been very attritional, especially last season. The thing about De Zerbi's style is that De Zerbi wants the man-to-man press. In fact, his system works best against teams that press man-to-man because he's relying on players being pulled out of position, and then there being like, profile mismatches where you've got maybe a fast winger against a centre back that's not as fast. So De Zerbi actually lives for teams to press him, and I think that for the teams that like to play a high press, we will have very interesting games against them because that's what De Zerbi wants. And then where we will see something that's a bit different is when teams sit back and then De Zerbi needs to play against a blocked defense, and that's a different style again. So he will have basically two kinds of teams that he will face, or two styles of teams to break down. And the man-to-man press will be, I think, easy for his system. It's really the teams that sit back in a packed defense that we will have to figure out how we're going to unpick that lock, and that's where all those like forward line signings come in.
Well, Dustin, let's stay with you because there was a bit of a goal scramble. Richarlison headed it towards goal, actually hit the post, and then the referee brought it back for a free kick. Now, when we're talking about all of those crosses that are coming into the box, how important is it that the likes of Richarlison and Dominic Solanke do stay fit? Because De Zerbi over the last week or two have spoken so highly about these two. He's also said that Richarlison, sometimes he's saying he wants to leave, sometimes he's saying he wants to stay. So Richarlison's future surely is uncertain at the moment. And with Dominic Solanke, and I quote De Zerbi, he said that there are not too many strikers in the Premier League who are better than Dominic Solanke. And as Lee said, we haven't seen the best of Dominic Solanke since he signed from Bournemouth, and both have had many injury issues. But it's also interesting to note as well that during my time in Australia and New Zealand, where I watched the open training sessions, although we saw great passages of play like all of you have mentioned so far, there weren't that many goals even scored in the open training session. So what will De Zerbi be thinking at the moment about that final third and his forwards?
I think the challenge with De Zerbi's system is kind of like, I'm gonna divert for a moment, right? Talk about martial arts, right? There are certain martial arts where it takes you, you get to 70% of your maximum capability very quickly. That's why in mixed martial arts, a lot of people do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, because you don't take a long time to become a useful fighter. And then there's certain martial arts like some niche Chinese martial arts and Russian Sistema, for example, where you're crap for a really long time, and then suddenly you hit a level where you can fight 6 or 7 people at one time, but you're crap for a really long time because the foundations are so difficult to master. So I suspect with De Zerbi in his attacking system is that it's intricate, it's like fishing people out of position, and it's an adaptation that for a lot of teams, it takes time for the team to learn the system, because right now they're following his instructions and he's guiding them as best they can, but they haven't integrated it. There's not enough osmosis of the system into their heads. It's still something they need to think about. They may still need direction from him. It's when it becomes second nature and they start seeing the flow, where they start having like Neo from the Matrix and I understand everything now. When they start bidding into the system and they will start understanding things, they won't need his guidance anymore. They'll be like, okay, you come and you draw this player out, then I will run into the space that he vacates. So I think that early on, there will be frustrating games where we don't see what's happening. It seems like we're not scoring a lot of goals. And then when it clicks, and that's why I think that he got jump off Van Hecker on as a player, because he needs an on-field general, and Van Hecker played with him at Brighton and can marshal the system. You saw in the interview that, you're saying, oh, you seem very vocal even though he's a new player. And I think part of the reason De Zerbi got him in is that he needs an on-field general that understands the system down to the ground, and he's the player in that system that will be guiding players on like where they should move, when they should press, when they should pull back, when they should make a run. So I think we need to have a little bit of patience, because it'll take time for the players to get to bed in the system and to understand it and to be able to execute it instinctively rather than through his instruction.
That's a really good point, Terry, that Dustin makes there about Jean-Paul Van Hecker. Of course, he knows his system inside and out. How important is it that he has someone like Van Hecker who he has managed before, and he knows exactly what he demands, exactly what he wants, and so he can tell other players on the pitch if they haven't quite got it.
Yeah, I mean, he really seemed to play that field general role today. I was I was just very, very impressed, not just with the constant through balls, but just the general direction on defense. I mean, we saw him in the World Cup, how great he was in the World Cup defensively as well. With just some of the physicality as well. I know he fouled the Getafe players a couple of times, jumping over them, but I love that that aggression, but not that over the top aggression that we typically see from Romero. I mean, at times I just felt like he looked like a better version of Romero out there with a little bit more composure, constantly having his head up, scanning as well. I wanted to touch on just one thing Dustin said about just things clicking. It feels like it's close to clicking. I mean, in 70 minutes today, I mean, the score should have been at least 3 or 4-1. I mean, Robertson should have had 2 assists at least. There was that Ben Davis header right before the beginning of before halftime that he hit right at the goalkeeper, and then Robertson had another beautiful cross in the second half that was kind of zinged into Mikey Moore, and Mikey Moore kind of just I don't think he was quite ready for that. I think someone mentioned that Tell cross to Richarlison that he should have done better with as well. So I would have loved. I'd love to see what the XG numbers were in just 70 minutes today, but I suspect that they were pretty high. So it feels like it's close to clicking. Having those finishers on the end of those crosses, with just higher quality attackers, it feels like it will be there. There's just too many question marks as to who those people are going to be. If we sell or if we loan out Mikey Moore to FC Cologne, I have no idea who's going to start at right wing in 2 weeks here. It's having said that, so Manor Solomon, by no means do I think Manor Solomon is the solution here, but until we have reinforcements in, is it really wise to sell Manor Solomon for just, I think he's being linked for £5 million or so? Is it not worth keeping him just to have another body in there, just in case, until the reinforcements come in? I'm really questioning I'm really questioning whether we should sell him at this point.
Lee, I was going to talk about the transfer window right at the end, but now Terry has mentioned this. At the start of the transfer window, Spurs were lining up deals left, right, and centre, and as we all know, we've got 6 deals over the line, all Premier League experienced players. Now, if we had a centre forward in at this stage and a left winger, I think everybody will be feeling very, very excited. I know there has been a lot of excitement, including from the likes of myself. There has been a lot of excitement during this transfer window. But as Terry has said, and Dustin has touched on this as well, we're 2 weeks away from the Premier League campaign starting. The way that Roberto De Zerbi wants to play, the excitement of how he wants to play, etc., and the top quality midfield signings that we have got in so far, spending £85 million and then breaking the transfer record fee again of £100 million on Tonali. You think of how the excitement will be so different. How are you feeling about going into the new season, about the transfer window?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think, everyone was so excited. And I think the fact that we got so many deals done so quickly, I think has kind of set a precedent. And then, of course, you had De Zerbi with his there's a bomber coming comments and so on. And it just kind of sets everything up. And we're so desperate as fans to have everything sorted and have it all before, the season starts and all the rest of it. But I don't think that De Zerbi will be panicking too much now. I think, like I just said, he's got Tell on that left-hand side, so I think he's seen that he can play for him and so on. Manor Solomon, as far as I know, is I've just seen a pop up on my screen. Here we go to West Ham today, something like 7 million. So I think he's gone anyway. But I agree. Who's going out on the right if at the start of the season, really. So it is a little bit concerning from that point of view. But then, like I said earlier, we don't know what's going on in the background, exactly what De Zerbi's seeing, exactly where people are on their return from injury and so on. We've seen Kulusevski and Kudus out on grass, running, shooting, and so on. So we don't know where they may be. But also, we don't know what stage each of the deals that they may be working on currently sit. So, Savinho, we've been having this deal since about 1942. So you'd like to think that may well be sorted at some point very soon. And I do feel like that's done. I feel like it's done, and they're just waiting for it to be the right time to announce. And it may be more to do with City than anything else. From a striker point of view, I just worry about who is there out there that we could really get. And I think with De Zerbi bigging up Solanke, I do think Solanke is a decent striker. I do think he is a good Premier League striker. The problem with Solanke is he's played in a poor team and a poor Tottenham team, and B, he's struggled with injuries so much, and that's the big concern. If you can get Solanke fit and in a decent team, then I think he does well. That's not to say I wouldn't like Osimhen to come in. For me, that would be that would be a bomber, right? That would be the dream, is to get someone like that in. I'm concerned, but I'm not overly concerned. Put it that way. I do believe that the deals will get done. I do believe that they know more about what's going on, obviously, and I do feel the deals are probably closer than we think. And I don't think it'll go to the last day of the season with a kind of load of rushed deals and stuff. I think there may be some stuff happen at the end of the window, because there generally does. But I do think there is a plan, and I do think they're working their way towards it, as we've seen. Going from defence to midfield to attack. That's how I see this kind of playing out.
Yeah, I certainly feel like the feeling amongst the fan base will be very, very different if we do not get those forward players come in. And I think that Roberto De Zerbi will feel heavily let down if that doesn't happen. So fingers crossed that it does happen, because so far in this transfer window, we have been very ambitious and we have all had smiles on our faces, and there has been excitement from all of us. Let's hope that continues. Also, what Lee mentioned there, from Fabrizio Romano, an exclusive, Mount Solomon to West Ham. Here we go. Deal agreed now and medical booked for tomorrow. £5 million fixed fee and £2 million in add-ons to Tottenham, all approved by Spurs. Solomon will sign a 3-year deal at West Ham plus option till June 2030. Now, Dustin, let's come to you. Let's go back to the game. Tell free kick outside the box. He hit the wall. He went out for a corner. Then the incident we've already discussed. Tell to Tonali, couldn't quite get there. And then Tell to Robertson. Really good football this from Tottenham. Robertson then crossed in to Mikey Moore, as Terry mentioned earlier, and then he headed just wide. What have you made of Mikey Moore? Of course, we saw Mikey Moore go out on loan last season to Rangers, had a really tough start, ended up winning the Young Player of the Year in Scotland, ended really well for Mikey Moore, really successful loan. And I always say it's always interesting how these players come back to a team like Tottenham, because they're so used to playing, they're so used to hearing the crowd singing their name, and they're being one of the first players on the team sheet. Where does Mikey Moore's future stand for you? And like Terry also mentioned, he's just about to sign a deal with Cologne on loan to go to the Bundesliga. How do you think that he will fare there? And is it right that he does go out on loan for another season?
He definitely should go out on loan, because it is a position that we've unfortunately overstacked ourselves in, and all with an age profile that's very, very challenging to have a clear pathway to the first team. Because in his way, you basically have Tell, Odebear, and whoever else we might sign. Luca Williams-Barnett plays there as well. So basically what we have is kind of, we have quite a few players that can play that left wing position. But one thing I've said about squad building before is that, the way that we should ideally build a squad is where there's a first team player that is, clearly better than the rest. So even the person that is, second fiddle accepts it because there's a quality difference. And ideally, this should be like a player at peak age, 26, 27, 28. Then the next player is maybe 3 years younger, and then there's a youth team player behind that as well. And when you have like a team that's built that way, it's a healthier dynamic because they are competing for the same position, but there's a clear hierarchy, and the player that's playing second fiddle kind of accepts it a bit more because they're the junior player, unless they're really forcing their way through. And it's good competition, it's a good dynamic. The problem is that you have Odebear, Tel, almost a similar age, Mikey Moore a little bit younger, and it's very hard to have if you then sign another player, then who exactly plays on the left wing, right? Unless they can play multiple positions. And I think that's why we saw more on the right wing, because we're trying to see whether is there a way of can he play on the right? What can he do there? Can he play a part in different positions in the team? The left wing side is a little challenging because the Odebear and Tel signings mean that it's same profile, same country even, and both play in a similar position, although Tel ostensibly is supposed to be a striker. So that's one of the challenges we have. And with youth team players also, it's like pathways are a big deal for us. So if they're not getting first team minutes, they should definitely go on loan. During Pochettino's era, a lot of people were talking about how Pochettino develops youth team players very well, because a number of youth team players ended up going to the first team under Pochettino. But he also stalled a few youth team players' development by keeping them in the club, but they never got minutes. So there were a number of youth team players that basically stayed with the club, didn't get minutes, then eventually left the club to look for minutes elsewhere. So I think that that's one of the things that we should be looking to avoid, because the reality is not every youth team player is going to make it. And if they don't make it, the least they can do is go to another club, have a great career, make us money with sell-on fees and stuff like that. And if we have youth team players that have to go, like Lancashire just left, there are many ways to have stuff in their contract such that if they do well, sell-on fee becomes a discount if we buy them back. If we maintain good relationships with them, first refusal, sell-on fee, and all that kind of stuff, so that there's a pathway back to the club if they become the next Harry Kane. And if they don't, well, they make their career elsewhere. And other youth team prospects look at our club and go, oh, you don't just keep us here to rot in the first team, you do send them out on good loans. So that's a big part of the youth pipeline as well. You're muted, Chris.
Just very quickly, should we have kept Will Lancashire, Dustin?
Realistically, I don't think that's the profile of striker that Roberto De Zerbi looks at. I mean, just looking at how we were targeting Krupi, I think he wants a connector rather than a target man. I think Will Lancashire is more of a target man, so doesn't seem to be the profile fit. I would have loved to have seen him work it out here, but the reality is the Premier League has so much money now that very few clubs are going to take a chance on youth prospects unless they're really banging down the door with their performances. So a Harry Kane being promoted to the first team is something that is going to be increasingly more rare as time goes on, especially if the league continues to have the most money in the world and it's cheaper to really buy teenagers from France, Portugal, or whatever, and the best teenagers from all of these other leagues, just because they make so much money here. And it's getting to the point that a team that's relegated from the Premier League can spend more than teams in the Champions League places in other top 5 leagues.
So 15 minutes from time, in the 55th minute, Getafe took a 1-0 lead. And Terry, I'll come to you on this one to get your thoughts on the goal. Commentator Rob Daly on Spurs Play said, cut through Spurs. That's exactly how I felt. That's why I wrote this down. And I know Dustin said that he didn't like the way that Getafe actually went through our Spurs midfield. And in some ways, it was too easy at some points. But I don't want to be harsh because it is pre-season. I know you can't read a lot into pre-season. It is all about minutes. But it did seem a well-worked goal from the Spanish side, who finished 7th last season in La Liga. What did you make of the goal?
Yeah, that's funny. I actually wrote that as well. They cut through Spurs. It was a really nice 1-2 passing from Getafe. I think it was primarily, from what I recall, Bergvall and then Davis who were kind of culpable on that play there. Which, because of that, it makes me a little bit less worried. There's still question marks as to whether Bergvall is going to stay with us or not. And then Davies is very much going to be just a quiet leader as a squad player for us. So that I wasn't worried about. Getafe didn't have a lot of chances. That was one really nice run of play, but overall, I thought kind of defensively, we were pretty in control over that game. So I'm not too worried about that, just that one play.
Terry, can I ask you about Lucas Bergvall? Because from what I noticed in New Zealand and Australia, there was a lot of communication between Roberto De Zerbi and the midfielder. And of course, we know that he has spoken out and said that he wants to leave, especially after the signings of Fernandes and Tonali. But De Zerbi has come out and said that he wants him to stay. How do you think that this situation will unfold? Because there is a lot of interest in the Sweden international, and rightly so.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, we've been talking about Will Lancashire, about Mikey Moore, about Lucas Williams-Barnett. I think Bergvall is up there with Gray in terms of potential. I'd be pretty crushed if we lost him. I mean, it is a nice price tag that we're talking about, especially for what we bought him for. It's so tough just because we have so many midfielders and so many still coming back from injury. So from his point of view, I completely understand where he's coming from, but the ceiling with him seems so high. So for him, you kind of have to be happy for him if he did get a move out. I think he would have some regular playing time for a club like Nottingham Forest. I'd be pretty crushed if we lost him, though. You saw glimpses of it today here. Again, the level of quality between him and kind of who's ahead of him. When you see Tonali, kind of how he plays, there's still certainly a lot of room for growth there. So it feels like he won't stay. It feels like De Zerbi. It feels like De Zerbi's a little fed up with hearing that he doesn't want to stay as well. So it seems like the relationship is a bit fractured there. Not sure how that's going to go, but if I had to guess, it seems like he's going to go.
He's right in his attitude, though, Terry, isn't he, De Zerbi, by saying, "Well, if you don't want to be here, just go."
Yeah, and and there are a lot of players who do want to stay. So having said that, that would ease his loss a bit, but it's hard not to see the potential. I mean, he was what was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago, he was our player of the year. So it's it's hard to lose that talent that young. What is he still? 21 right now? It's still very, very, very young. So it's without a doubt, he's going to go on, whether it's with us or with another club. He is going to be a solid Premier League player.
Lee, you mentioned about showing great character by coming from behind, and 5 minutes after going behind, Spurs equalised through Conor Gallagher. Really good finish with the side of his foot. Went through Richarlison. What did you make of the goal?
Yeah, it was really good. Typically, my stream froze just as it went in. So
Richarlison
had to rely on.
It's a great run and finish. And in the end, Conor Gallagher did not give it up.
Back, we came back to life once they had scored. I think we tried to really kind of push onto it. So Richarlison doing what Richarlison does, kind of getting in the way and causing people to kind of pull him over and stuff. And it fell nicely to Gallagher. And good to see him kind of, I mean, he literally, really gave it a weight to get it there. He kind of burst a gut to get to that and smash it in. So yeah, really, really good goal. So I'm really happy to get one back and to continue this sort of unbeaten thing, because it did feel like it could go to, we kind of lost our way. They'd scored their goal, and it was a good goal, to be fair, that they scored. Like we've just said, they kind of played it right through the middle and, quick passing and stuff, and caught us off guard there. So good to get back to that. And I'd say I thought we did well to get back into it. But I'd say for me, seeing Gallagher get it was a good one from midfield, kind of bursting forward to make that happen. So yeah, I was pleased with it.
Lee, how important is Conor Gallagher going to be for Roberto De Zerbi this upcoming season? Because he does seem to be a very, very different player. And I know Dustin jokes about Thomas Frank, but he does seem to be a very different player under Roberto De Zerbi, particularly at the back end of last season.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think every player seems a different player under De Zerbi than they were under Thomas Frank. I mean, I'm a different fan than I was under Thomas Frank than I am under De Zerbi, to be fair.
So am I.
Yeah, and I think to be fair to De Zerbi, he's come in and he's given them confidence and belief and self-belief. And he's been honest with them. And I stand by this point. If you don't want to play for Tottenham, get out of the club. I don't want you. The thing is, for fans, the club's everything, right? A football club is our club. It's our life. It's our circle of friends. It's our family. It means everything. You would change your wife, but you wouldn't change your football team, right? So if someone doesn't want to be part of that, then I don't want them. So. And it's difficult because they're professionals. They're just footballers, right? So they've got no allegiance to Tottenham Hotspur unless they've come through the club and have family connections. They're not as committed to Tottenham as I am, right? Same as managers, same as owners and all of this. It's a different thing altogether. So, but for me, if they can't see what Tottenham are trying to do, and if they don't want to be part of it, and they're more interested in going somewhere where they can get into the team easily, then for me, you've not got the right attitude. Because for me, if you're Lucas Bergvall and you believe that you are one of the best players around and you've got an elite manager there who's going to teach you and get you there, is obviously going to make you promises to help you progress your career, then you should be inspired by that and want to play. If you don't, sling your hook. If you want to go and play for Nottingham Forest, with all due respect to Nottingham Forest, if you want to go and play for Nottingham Forest, off you go. That's my attitude for them all. I want them to want to play. And you look at the players that are coming in, they're all saying that De Zerbi is one of the reasons why they want to come. Tonali wants to come because of De Zerbi. Fernandes wants to come because of De Zerbi. JP Van Hecken wants to come because of De Zerbi, And you've got Conor Gallagher talking about it from that point of view as well. He's making it hard for them. They're scared of him, but they respect him and so on. And it's making Conor Gallagher more of the player that he was for Chelsea than he was under Thomas Frank, when he was playing in a poor team in a poor system that just, when it wasn't working. Now he's got the confidence, he's got the support, he's got the manager's belief and so on that's going to help him into that next level. And that's what I think is important. People think managing people is easy. It isn't. You're talking about how to get the best out of every individual, because every individual is an individual. They've all got their own problems. They've all got their own vices. They've all got their own personalities and stuff. And you've got to work out, how am I going to get the best out of that person? And you can't praise that enough. And I hate to say it, that's what I liked about Ange Postecoglou, because he had that with those players. You get that trophy, the elusive trophy, and then you sack him and you bling in a bloke who could send a rock to sleep. And then, you're expecting these players to be inspired. It just wasn't going to happen.
Hey, Lee, I love the way that De Zerbi big ups the players. I mean, he called Porro the best right back in the world. He called Van Ven the best left-sided center back in the Premier League. I mean, he's saying Solanke is one of the best Premier League strikers. He's saying Conor Gallagher is having two people on the field. Deep down, I don't know if he really believes that, but just saying that out loud and instilling that confidence and showing his players that he has that they have that backing. I just love that attitude.
I think you've got to do that. If you want Conor Gallagher to play like two players, then you've got to say that having Conor Gallagher is like having two players. Yeah. You've got to, if you went out and said, they're not very good, then you shouldn't be managing that team. You've got to support your players for sure. But he'll know who he can rely on and who he can't rely on. And that's why I say it's all well and good us sitting here. I'm an ex-logistics manager. I know absolutely nothing about football compared to Roberto De Zerbi. So it doesn't matter whether I think Dom Solanke is good or not, right? Dom Solanke is a professional footballer. He's made his living as a professional footballer. And all those people that brought him all the way through believe that Dom Solanke is a good professional footballer. So the fact that I might think he's not very good kind of, says it all, really, doesn't it? And by the way, I don't think Dom Solanke's a rubbish footballer, but you get the point I'm making. We can all be experts, but there are people that are paid lots of money to make those decisions. And if they believe that he is one of the better strikers around, then who am I to disagree with him?
Dustin, Lee says there about who he can rely on. Can he rely on Richarlison this upcoming season? Because a couple of minutes from time, another cross from Tell into the box, no one there. And in 3 minutes from time, Richarlison header at the goalkeeper. And I might add, this was another chance set up by Tell. Goalkeeper saved from Richarlison. He should have won it for Spurs in the end, Richarlison. What did you make of his performance? What have you made of his performance overall during pre-season? Because, of course, a week ago, he got the winner against Chelsea.
I think Richarlison just really likes that needle, because it's a derby against Chelsea and we're down to 10 men. That's the kind of adversity that Richarlison likes to perform under. Whereas it's like 70-minute friendly at the Lodge, and his header was kind of like that kind of look. Richarlison is such an enigma. He's a striker from Brazil that is clumsy on the ball, has a first touch of a sex offender, and he's just not the player that Roberto De Zerbi needs to be able to connect play, right? If you're pinging the ball to Richarlison so that he can hold the ball up and bring his teammates into play, his first touch brings it back to midfield already, and half the time he's running around chasing a loose first touch. So I think that, largely speaking, Richarlison is useful as a target man because he is good in the air. But if you're talking about Richarlison that plays in a Roberto De Zerbi system, there's just one player less that he has to develop play through. And I foresee that he would prefer a striker of the profile of a Krupi or something that, is better at connecting play. So Solanke can connect play a lot better as well, hold up the ball, bring other teammates in, pass it to a winger, and then arrive late in the box. For Richarlison, I think that he's got a lot of determination. I did say last season that relegation battle Richarlison is one of the best tools you can have as a relegation threatened side, just because he has that determination, and in that kind of situation that's what you need. But if you want to be challenging for the top half of the league, relying on Richarlison as one of your main strikers is an indictment of your squad building.
Before we move on to the last question, there's two players that we haven't mentioned in the starting 11 today. Terry, I'll come to you on this. Kinski, what have you made of him during pre-season? Not a lot for him to do today. And Andy Robertson, we've seen the time that he has played for Spurs during pre-season so far. He loves to put a cross in.
Oh my gosh. So Kinski, yeah, he didn't really have a lot to do. Nothing he could have done about the goal that he conceded. He did have a really nice long pass that I think the entire sideline was applauding him. He really seems to be growing in confidence, and I mean, I think I think some probably had some questions. Is he really a number one going into the season? I think all of those concerns are dissipating. I am very confident of him being our number one going into the season. Him as a number one with Dubravka as a number two. We seem pretty set at that point. Robertson, I think we all knew what we were getting. I mean, I've always been impressed with him at Liverpool. I mean, there were a couple of defensive lapses against Chelsea that were a bit alarming. But the quality of his crosses, so not just on corner kicks, like I said before, he's constantly looking up, scanning the field, and just the quality of the balls that come in, it's a different. It really, really is a different level. I'd say even better than Porro. I mean, Porro does have great crosses, but some just are completely off the mark. They aren't really far. They're never really far. We just need to have more quality on the end of those passes. But the thought of Porro and Robertson both coming up both lengths, and the crosses being pinged in, with a fully firing Solanke on the end of them is quite a promising thought. So I think all the signings thus far, they're exactly who we hoped and thought they would be. I can't wait to see more of Fernandez. I can't wait to see Senesi in action as well. But just very, very, very happy with the signings thus far.
Yeah, as Terry mentioned there, great distribution today, not just today, but during pre-season with Kinski. And after today's game, he was actually working with the goalkeeping coaches, spraying balls left, right and centre. And that's great to see as well, because he is working a hell of a lot on that. And you can really see it in these matches so far. Now, last question, Lee, we'll start with you. It'll be the same question for all three of you. Now, 14 days until the opening Premier League game for Tottenham at the Getafe Community Stadium against Brentford. How are you feeling ahead of the brand new season? And there is now just 24 days left of the transfer window. And I know this is a big question all in one. 24 days left of the transfer window. For you to be a super happy fan, to feel so confident about this season, 26-27 campaign, what needs to happen in terms of incomings and outgoings? It also looks like Spurs captain or Spurs centre-back, no matter whatever way you want to look at it, Romero going out the door to Atletico Madrid. There have been a lot of reports recently stating that Arsenal are really stepping up their pursuit of Romero, but there's no way that Spurs are going to sell to that mob down the road. There's also a lot of reports about Jed Spence possibly going out the door. So in terms of incomings, outgoings and the season, how are you feeling, Lee?
Yeah, well, you know me, Chris. I'm a bit of a happy clapper anyway. So I'll always try to be positive about the season. I don't think you can do everything in one transfer window. I really don't. I think there's lots and lots that needs to be done in terms of the overall squad and constant development. I think you need to constantly update your squad and so on. And that's why I feel we've fallen so far behind, because of the times when we didn't do that. So as it stands at the moment, I would like to see a left winger be brought in. That for me is a priority. I do think that you could probably still get by with Solanke if he stays fit. Richarlison, I think, is Richarlison. I think, like you say, he's the sort of player you want if you're in trouble. You can't knock his commitment and so on. But he needs replacing. I think he's in his last year. Is he now? I think coming up tour anyway. So I think he probably needs to move on. In terms of outgoings, I don't want to see Spence go. If I'm being honest, not unless you've got an excellent right back coming in. I don't really want to see Archie Gray being our backup right back. If I'm being honest, I think De Zerbi said that he wanted him to focus on one position. Rather than being sort of jack of all trades. So I'd prefer to see him in his natural sort of midfield role. So I don't really want to see Spence go. Romero, he can do what he likes, to be honest with you. I've kind of, like most of us, we've got fed up with him. Like his antics at the World Cup as well didn't help his case and so on. So he can go whatever he wants to do, to be honest with you. And I think there's a few more different bits and pieces that probably need clearing up. Vicario's situation needs to be sorted as well. So, but yeah, I'm fairly confident going into the new season. I think it can't get worse than last season. 17th without a trophy is pretty appalling, but I'm not expecting that to happen again this season for sure. So fairly confident, but I still think there's a lot to do. For me, the main priority has got to be getting a left winger to support Tel. I think Tel's okay as a backup and can obviously cover right wing as well as left wing. But we definitely need a left winger. But say from a strike force point of view, like Tel can play up front as well as Solanke can play up front. Richarlison, if he's still there. So, it's not as much of a priority, although I really want to see that covered at some point.
Justin, same question to you. And it's also worth noting that Roberto De Zerbi in the last couple of days has been talking about bombers. So we are all excited yet again. Let's hope that does happen. And he's also stated in the last couple of days that he's never had such a good relationship with a board before.
I don't know what that says about him, but I think that he has been in, Marseille is a bit of a basket case club, and he had a decent relationship at Brighton. It's just that what Brighton wants to be as a club doesn't fit kind of his aspirations as coach. From my perspective, I think that it's impossible to get all the signings you want in one window. So realistically, I don't think that we're going to be able to reinforce all the positions. I think we need reinforcing. I think even though we have Kudus, we still need to get a right winger because we don't know if he comes back from injury, and we don't know whether he'll be the same player. So we have a memory of what he was like. It may not exist anymore, similar of Kulusevski and Maddison. So I think that from that perspective, we need to definitely sign a striker, and we need to sign a left winger. So what I'm looking at is, and they may or may not be realistic, but I'm a fan, so it's not my job to be realistic. It's Osherman or Endrick, and then for left wing, Nico Williams or Said Elmala, and then for right wing, possibly Akliush.
Akliush just signed with PSG. It's
what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dustin, I will throw in another question here for you. There's lots of reports at the moment going around that James Maddison will be the new Spurs captain for the new season for Roberto De Zerbi. And at the moment, it is hopeful that he will make the squad for the Brentford game. Is there worry about his injury record at Tottenham to make him club captain? Although if he is made club captain, I'm sure that they will go down the route again of having a leadership group with vice captains in there. And also, how pleasing was it for you to see on the training pitch, on the grass the other day, Kulusevski and Mohamed Kudus coming back?
It's amazing to see them on the grass. I just need to check that it's not AI. But look, with Maddison as club captain and his injury record, I mean, like, we had Romero as our club captain and he's played 62% of the games, either missing either through injury or suspension. So either way, I think it's an improvement over Romero. It's good to make James Maddison club captain because he looks like a person that gets it, and I think it fills the gap that Sonny performed when he was in the club, which is not just being on the pitch but welcoming youth team players. He was always talking to everyone, making everyone feel welcome, and you can see from his videos now that he's a YouTuber as well that James Maddison does get very involved, bringing all the players in and keeping their morale up. So I think I understand why De Zerbi wanted him on the bench, even though he may not have been fit enough to play, because his influence as a captain and as a person in the dressing room matters. That said, he should be fit enough to... You want your club captain fit enough to play most games, and I think that's kind of where the challenge is. I foresee actually John-Paul Van Hecke becoming club captain because he's literally De Zerbi's son, who he's brought from his previous club in. So I can see Van Hecke definitely becoming part of that leadership group. Probably Tonali as well with the whole Brescia connection. And I think that's kind of the signings that De Zerbi's made. He's signing players in influential parts of the pitch that he has a close connection with because he expects them to be his voice on the field. So I can see that Van Hecke and Tonali will definitely become part of that leadership group as well.
It's strange me going on the pre-season tour and having no Harry Kane and no Heung-min Son on pre-season. It did seem very, very strange indeed. Terry, final question for you. And I know there's a lot there. 14 days to Brentford, 24 days left of the transfer window. What would you like to see happen, and how confident are you feeling ahead of this new season?
Cautiously optimistic about this season coming forward. It's I'm going to echo a lot of what Lee and Dustin have said thus far. I mean, for me personally, I think Tonali, Fernandez, and Van Hecke are such game changers that if the transfer window were to end today, I would still rate it quite high. I would rate it about an 8 out of 10 already, even without the strikers. Bringing someone like in Osimhen, even though it's a bit of a pipe dream, I that would easily make it a 10, without a doubt. More of the worry is more some of the outgoings as well. Lee touched on this. It's I think Romero. I think Romero needs to leave. Vicario, I will miss Vicario as a person. I think he was a great leader for Spurs as well. It's just there just isn't a place for him, and I don't want him to be a distraction. There's this question marks about Bergvall, with Jed Spence, especially with some of the numbers that are being thrown around for him, like around 35 million pounds. I think that would be an absolute robbery for whatever club. It's given Poro's workload and having had no rest over the World Cup, not having a solid backup, and I think Spence is more than just a solid backup. I think he's incredible. It's especially at that World Cup. Oh my gosh! So it's I would be most upset at seeing Spence leave, especially given Poro's workload and then Udogie's injury history. So there's still a lot to happen. I mean, we've spoken ad nauseum about the strikers. I think 2 solid strikers coming in, I think that makes it a 10 window. And thank you for prefacing it with just saying like you can't solve for everything in one window. Like I feel like we've come pretty close. We're just a couple of players away from that, but not a lot of time to get that. So cautiously optimistic going into Brentford. Still a lot of question marks around kind of who those strikers are going to be, and then when Maddison's going to come back, when Kudus is going to come back, and how effective they're going to be when they do.
Lee, I promise this will be the last question. It does seem, I just want to touch on what Terry said. There does seem to be some very strange transfer fees. They're either really, really high or some are really, really low.
Yeah, I think if you're selling abroad, they're low because obviously no other league has got the pulling power and the financial power of the Premier League. So it wouldn't surprise me when you're talking about, 35, 40 million for Romero to go to Atletico Madrid, for instance. It just makes sense that they're struggling from that. And then when they're selling to the Premier League, they want to get as much as they can because obviously that's where the money is. So it kind of makes sense. But like I say, where they get the idea that Jed Spence is only worth £35 million to go to Liverpool, for instance, to me is as Terry said, is criminal. Like, at this rate, he should be sort of 50, 60 million for sure. Coming off the back of the World Cup as well, where he was kind of one of the standout players. It just makes no sense to me that he would be that low in value. So, especially when you think, Van Hecke, we paid 52 million for him. So, it's a bit of a strange one, but there you go. And it looks like Chris has just dropped off. He's just had a problem with it. But Terry, do you agree with that? Do you think you said that you agree with 35 million is just ridiculous, right?
Yeah, I mean, just criminal is the right word. I can't believe some of the numbers that are being thrown out there. And just on principle, Romero, I know a lot has happened with Romero for the past year, so there are reasons for that. But it is a little crazy to think that most likely he's going to be sold for less than Vuskovic, right?
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind
when you think about just the contrast between the two, it's I don't know. We're just so poor at we're so poor at selling. Even our good players, we're so poor at selling our good players.
I thought we'd done quite well this
one question
season.
for you guys. I know this is. I think it's culturally it's different. So in the NFL, it's very common for players to be traded or sold to arch rivals. If just hypothetically, if Arsenal were to give us £80 million or something for Romero, even for a number like that, it's still a no for you guys?
No.
No chance.
Okay.
No chance. Because you see, the risk of that is he goes over there, like, wipes out our players, no longer gets red cards, that kind of nonsense. No.
We don't even need to entertain that question.
I think I lost audio from you guys.
It's a no. It's a no.
No chance.
Right.
No chance.
And just to add on about like the fees, I think that's kind of where the Premier League's TV money really has distorted the market, where it's almost impossible.
I don't have audio.
It's almost impossible to sell overseas anymore. So I think that what we need to start exploring is like whichever club we are selling to, we're like, okay, if you can't afford the fee, you can have this player and we want one of your players, so that if we're going to Atletico, we're like, okay, we very much like your winger, or Alex, someone else from your team, rather than just doing the straight transfer fee, because the market is so distorted that there's no way they can afford what the player is actually worth to us. And then if you don't want to sell to rivals, you have to sell overseas, and then you're stuck with getting very, very reduced transfer fees.
Dustin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me here, because I'm terrible at spelling it. It's right here.
And Terry, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks, guys. Great catching up. It's been a while. It's nice to get back into it. Can't wait for the season to start.
Thank you so much. And Lee, thank you as always. I know you're a regular on this channel. You're here every day giving us the Premier League news, Tottenham news and everything else, thoughts of the day, etc. You're on your way to 3,000 subscribers. Where can people find you? What can they expect?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and thanks for letting me put some stuff out on your channel and supporting your channel. I think it's a brilliant channel with lots of stuff going on. You can find me. I'm on all the socials as Leader Dorset Spur. As you say, 3,000 is getting very, very close, which is amazing for an old fart like me to kind of have that level. So, yeah, I'm looking to do a bit more next season. Looking to do more reviews and stuff like that, and some live streams maybe. So we'll see. We'll see how much we can develop it. So yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Lee, Dustin, Terry. Thank you for your time this evening. As I mentioned, 14 days now until the Premier League season starts for Tottenham away at Brentford. We've got 2 pre-season friendlies left and 24 days left of the transfer window. Let's hope it is a busy one. Let's hope that we are all super happy and excited going into the brand new season. And most importantly, let's hope that Roberto De Zerbi feels fully backed and he is happy going into the new campaign. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.